buddy. I'm explorer Arkero. Do you know what artifact you have in your hand? It is not an ordinary horse, it is the protagonist of a legend that has been circulating for centuries. Let me explain where the myth takes place in more detail. At the foot of the Kaz Mountains, there is an archaeological site called Hisar. Archaeologists have unearthed an ancient city dating back to ancient times during their excavations in this region. The name of that city is Troy or Ilian Ancient City, and it is known for its legendary reputation. My explorer friend, legends are beautiful and precious, especially if they contain lessons and advice we can learn from. One such story is the legend of the Iliad, which tells the life of a boy named Heinrich Schliemann. He was a German businessman fascinated by the stories of the Iliad and the city of Troy. So he decided to go to the region and search for the city himself. Heinrich Schliemann was greatly influenced by the legend of the Iliad, which he heard from his father at a young age. Growing up, he visited many countries searching for the ancient city where the legend existed. Finally, he came to the area known as Hisar and, believing it to be the subject of the myths, began excavations in 1870. Not long after, he realized that the site he excavated was the ancient city of Troy and produced countless artifacts. My friend, the legend of the Iliad, was written 3,000 years ago by Homer, one of the first known writers of history. The tales of Homer, including the Iliad and Odyssey epics centered around the story of Troy, have been preserved to this day. Homer traveled to many locations to collect information on these stories, which had taken place 400 years before his time. The Iliad, an epic poem about the Trojan War, recounts the conflict between two powerful nations, the Trojans, located within the borders of the Achaeans and Çanakkale, which dominate continental Greece, and the struggle of two different communities living on the Aegean coast. Archaeologists believe that the struggle took place around 1240 BC and lasted for approximately 10 years, with the Iliad describing the war's final year. This era is known as the Heroic Age. I want to discuss the heroes of legend in the Iliad, such as the famous Achaean king Agamemnon, who ruled over continental Greece. Thousands of soldiers and a considerable navy were assembled under Agamemnon's command to attack the Trojan king Priam. Although the Iliad is passed between the Achaeans and the Trojans, it is not exactly like that. Besides the Achaeans, we see that many city-states from the Western world, such as the Athenians, Spartans, and Greeks, united against the Trojans. So, what did the Trojans do? The Trojans immediately sought help from neighboring city-states. In response to their plea for help, the Carians, Massalians, Dardanellans, Lycians, and Amazons, who were incredible female warriors, rushed to their aid. My friend, explorer, how many city-states were involved in the war? In this black figure Amphora from circa 530 BC, Achilles is depicted killing the Amazon queen Penthesilea, who was fighting on the side of the Trojans. We mentioned that the name of this era is the Age of Heroism. Do you want to know what other heroes are in the legend of the Iliad? Achilles, the famous warrior of the Achaeans, comes with his other name, Achilles. Achilles is pictured on the left in an ancient black figure vase. In the time left after the Trojan War, they were displayed playing the game of checkers that we are playing now. What a strange piece of information, my explorer friend, isn't it? Do you know who is among the heroes of Troy? At first, of course, there are the sons of the Trojan king. We know that the Trojan king Priam had two sons. Their names are Hector the Strong and handsome Paris. Achilles and Hector faced off in battle. Hector backed away as Achilles struck. Blood was gushing from the wound in his chest. My friend, the war lasted for about 10 years, but I told you that we only know the last year of this war according to the Iliad legend. Both sides were extreme. The Achaeans arrived at Bishop Bay near Troy with hundreds of ships and occupied the coast. The Trojans immediately intervened in this situation, and the first shot of the war that would last for many years was fired. According to legend, the Trojan War had reached a stalemate, with neither side able to gain the upper hand. Then, Odyssey, an Achaean commander, had a cunning idea. According to his plan, the army would pretend to retreat, and a massive horse statue would be constructed, similar to the one taken from the Arkerobox box. So, what happened after the preparation of this plan? Odyssey and 30 of his best warriors were hidden inside the vast horse statue. According to the story, When the Trojan king landed on the beach, he saw the Achaeans leaving the beach. In ancient times, when one side realized they had lost the fight, they would leave a gift before retreating. Priam also thought that the horse statue he encountered on the beach was left as a spoil of war by the Achaeans. He wanted to take the horse statue to Troy and display it in the city center to announce his victory to the world. They brought the sculpture to the city center with much effort, and the people of Troy started to celebrate around the statue. The Trojans were so caught up in the joy of victory that no one thought to look inside the horse. At night, Odysseus and his friends, who had gotten out of the horse, opened the gates of the city, and the Achaean army entered the town and took Troy. Odysseus was very clever, wasn't he? Will you read the entire Iliad in the future? We have a lot to learn from this story. Firstly, we know to be careful. We must never forget that a mistake we make may lead to irreversible paths. Also, if you read the whole story in the future, you can understand how precious it is to love and be loved, my friend. Do you remember Heinrich Schliemann? He was the man who searched for the location of the Iliad epic. He excavated for a long time in the ancient city of Troy to find the places mentioned in the story. Most of the artifacts found by Schliemann are now exhibited in Russia's Pushkin Museum. You may be wondering why these artifacts are not in Turkey. It's simple, Schliemann smuggled them out of the country. That is why the treasure of the Trojan king Priam is now displayed in many museums abroad. Isn't it wrong to steal, especially when it involves our cultural heritage? These artifacts do not belong to any one person, they are the shared heritage of all of us. Will you help protect our historical artifacts? Do you know of any museums in our country that display artifacts from Troy? Recently, a very lovely museum was established near the ancient city of Troy. It was so beautiful that it won the first prize at the 12th National Architecture Awards. It contains many artifacts, and there are knowledgeable archaeologists and art historians who can tell you about them. You can even visit the museum virtually online before you go. After that, remember to visit the museum with the artifact you removed from Arkerobox. My dear explorer friend, did you understand how important the ancient city of Troy was from what I told you? We have to ask ourselves why this legend has been circulating for centuries. What do you think made Troy so important? We need to know that the Trojan War was the first great struggle between the East and West known in history. All wars fought for centuries have been attributed to the Trojan War. For example, Fatih Sultan Mehmet comes to Çanakkale after the Trabzon expedition and says, "We avenged Hector." Do you remember Hector? Yes, he was a Trojan prince. Here we understand that the legend of Troy is a story that goes back centuries. Have you heard of UNESCO? If not, I can explain. UNESCO is an organization that protects our essential cultural heritage around the world. UNESCO helps protect these areas by listing important cultural heritage sites in the world. There are many ruins in our country that can be included in this list. Ancient Troy City was included in the World Heritage List in 1998. Did you know this? We have put a few of them into our Arkerobox boxes for you. How can we protect the ancient city of Troy and many other historical artifacts? Please consider this. These artifacts made thousands of years ago, have been passed down to us. We need to protect them very carefully. Let's watch them so future generations can view these works for many years. So let's not write anything on any of the results, let's not break them, and let's not do anything to damage them, shall we? Good for you! Because we are also cultural guardians. My friend explorer, you have made us very happy by joining us. Thank you very much! Please protect the artifact from the Arkerobox box very well. And I was hoping you could tell everyone what I told you because our knowledge increases as we share it.